Hi everyone, in this video I'm gonna talk about a video that I saw online which shows a very stark case of medical gaslighting or negligence that can happen to some people when they are going to their doctors for regular checkups, and when patients do not understand that they, even if the patient understands that they are falling sick, doctor doesn't understand that something was going wrong. So in this case, where in this video, the patient, when they went for their regular checkup, the patient was pregnant, and during their pregnancy, the patient's intuition and symptoms told them that something was going wrong with their body. So they went to the doctor. And now many a times what happens is, when you do standard blood tests and check up for a person, sometimes in the standard blood tests and blood reports, there's usually a normal range that is given. Like if your hemoglobin for a woman is a particular range, and if your blood report says that your hemoglobin is in that range that all women should have their normal hemoglobin at, then the doctor simply assumes that because it's within the normal range, everything is fine. And like that, it's not simply hemoglobin, multiple other things like blood platelets, if a complete blood count was done, or if a urinalysis was done, or any other liver tests or any other tests were done for this pregnant woman. If just a simple standard testing was done, mostly the RBCs and platelets and a complete blood count is usually done in these tests. And sometimes in some of these standardized tests, when they do a urinalysis, especially this is what I have found in India. In the urine test, once I had gone to get a urine test done, and all they checked for was for bacterial contamination. They were not checking for anything else other than just the standard things that 30-40 years back doctors used to check to see whether patients are normal. But the problem is, in the 30-40 years since these kind of tests were normal tests to be done on humans and pregnant women, the world has shifted majorly. There are currently in the world many other toxins than simple bacteria that can cause a woman to get urinary infections. There are many other things that can cause a person to have sepsis like symptoms and other infections, because we have a lot of food contaminations, lot of drink contaminations in our normal lives. There are many things that have been normalized that add to the toxic overload in our body. And according to me, this woman's case is a stark example of such a thing, where her daily life's practices and choices were impacting her health, but she didn't know it, because many of us are actually unaware. Even I was unaware, even though I have theoretically studied many of these things 20-30 years back, 10 years back. Some things we have learned in school life, some things we have learned as a college going student. I have done my bachelor's in pharmacology, master's in pharmacology, even a partial doctoral degree in pharmacology as a PharmD doctor. Despite doing all these different degree programs, and most of my all of these degree programs are from 10-20 plus years back. Despite that, it took me almost a few years, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not usually the one who sits through and looks at medical reports. But having done a partial PharmD course, which I had to get out of voluntarily for some legal and visa related reasons, because of which I couldn't finish my PharmD degree. But in that degree program, I was learning how to scrutinize these medical reports. And even though I had finished half of the program and I haven't finished the rest of the program, and though I don't remember always what blood tests can show to us when we are ill, I know this much about diagnostic reports and diagnostic tests, is that they are just an indicator of whether your body is functioning okay. But because the day the tests are taken, the hour the tests are taken, the moment the tests are taken, at that hour and point of time when the blood was taken or urine sample and blood sample were taken, if your body was at a normal level, your test can still end up showing a normal report. But imagine what usually even in those normal reports that shows up for someone, sometimes when you are really sick or going into some severe illness, and here this woman is pregnant, so it's not simply about the health of the mother, but health of the mother combined with the health of the child that will be influencing the report. So in that report, even if something was going wrong with her health, sometimes what happens is, if there is a particular range where your RBCs will be considered normal, in that range, if you are at the risk spectrum of the range where, if your RBC count has gone down, or if your hemoglobin is going down, or if your platelet is going down, all these things, if one or multiple factors are at the borderline stages, sometimes when doctors are really busy or they have been practicing for many decades and they have actually dulled their instincts about their patients, or a doctor who doesn't practice medicine outside of just looking at the reports, in all these kind of doctors cases, and sometimes there's also doctors who need to be updated on the modern things that are influencing people's lives. So if any of these factors were present in that day, in when this girl went to see her obstetrician, possibly that time, if the doctor just looks at the report and very superficially looks at it and didn't scrutinize deeply whether she was at the extreme end of something that could be a potential red flag, then the doctor could have even missed away many of the diagnostic symptoms that were showing that she's not actually that well. She could be still in the normal range of hemoglobin been okay, platelets been okay, everything in the report might still show that she might be okay, but the red flags might still have been there in the report. And this happened to me in my own case. That's why I understand this even better. And it took me I wanted to get a diagnosis from a doctor, but when I was not getting the right diagnosis from a doctor and I was really severely sick, I eventually started looking at all the reports that I had already gathered by then, either because the doctor had asked for those reports or because I was just doing a standard normal checkup that women over 40 do. So in all those women over 40 health checkups and whatever diagnostic reports I had already access to, along with the symptoms I was facing, when I combined the two, I could see that certain diseases were emerging in my reports, even though in the if someone looks at the report superficially, they will think that everything is normal. So with this girl also, this definitely happened because she was facing chills and whatever symptoms that she narrated also after seeing the doctor, whatever symptoms she was facing in the 2 weeks before this baby died. During those 2 weeks, her chills, and if she had mentioned these chills to the doctor, chills are actually one major symptom of sepsis. So the doctor should have looked into that symptom, but sometimes, as I said, if the doctor's senses have been dulled, or if the doctors, and this happens because if you see, hundreds and thousands of patients over a long period of 10-20 years, some people start getting very anesthetized to the work they do. And instead of sharpening their brain, instead of tuning in more better to their patients, they actually go the opposite way, because you can always evolve with your patients also. Because when you are a new doctor, universe and God is very merciful. People don't believe in universe and God influencing our lives. Many doctors especially don't believe these things. They only rely on their education and intellect to practice medicine. There are some doctors who do that, but actual medicine and actual healing and actual healthcare related practices, in that, if anyone is a good level or above average level practitioner of healthcare, they don't simply rely on the diagnostic criteria don't simply rely on the educational knowledge that they possess, but they also combine it with intuition, being intuitively tuned into the patient and the patient's needs, listening actually to what the patient is saying, not negating a patient's concern. Because many a times in this doctor patient's case also, and this happens majorly to many women, that when they are actually having this woman having had sepsis symptoms, means her body was in heightened level of stress. Now the doctor actually did tell her that she is having this symptom because she is stressed. That is true, but there is a the doctor was perceiving her stress response, because when your body is in physical distress from sepsis, a sepsis that has likely occurred in her body from some bacteria, mold, virus, or a combination of toxins in her body that led to the sepsis in her body. So when she is going through sepsis in her body, and the way the report, the patient, the doctor who finally gave the conclusion was that the baby was having sepsis, or this is how the narration is concluding, that the baby might have been dying, and the sepsis occurred because of the baby that was dying inside the body, or the baby had already died and the sepsis occurred after the baby died. But it is also likely possible that the baby hadn't died the day she had gone to see the doctor, 2 weeks before she was admitted finally, and in those 2 weeks the baby could have been saved if the sepsis had been happening to the mother, and the mother's sepsis causes and treatment had been initiated on the day she had seen the doctor. Because when someone has stress in their body, be it physical stress, emotional stress, or a combination of physical and emotional stress response. Physical stress happens when in our body our stress systems get activated inside our body when these kind of chemical microbial harm is happening to someone. I have myself faced this. I had microbial, chemical, and even radiological related possibly harm happening to me, because of which I had heightened stress response in my body. My cardiac system was not able to take the load, and when the cardiac, there was a whole set of signal transduction pathway that was getting initiated in my body. Now, I haven't done the research work related to signal transduction pathways in almost over 20 years. So, I haven't researched this area of what was happening to me as a scientist. But as a human being who understood her own body, I knew that every time something that is stressful to me was happening in front of me, immediately I was getting a anxiety response or agitated response, or my heart will either pump really fast, or my heart rate would increase, or my emotional response to something outside triggers were also higher. And it could not simply be the emotional response to outside physical toxins, because when pesticides are being sprayed, I was feeling like that. When people were using too much chemicals in the home, I was getting like that. When my water supply had contaminations in the water supply that were harming my health, I was getting this physical symptom and sometimes the emotional symptom. So now imagine a woman having a stressful response happening in her body because some chemicals or microbes in her water or food or both are increasing the stress response in her body. Now she has both a physical manifestation of it happening inside her body, where the sepsis is developing and all these other biochemical processes are altering in her body because she has some toxin or microbe in her body harming her health, which potentially, because that same toxin which is harming a 60-70 kg woman's health will also be harming a 1-2 kg baby's health also. So likewise, that same toxin was impacting the baby's health also. And based on how she was intuitively connected with her health and the baby's health, she knew that something was wrong. That with that knowledge, she had gone to the doctor. Now, if you are having stress, right now my voice suddenly went a little now higher in decibel. Why did my voice get higher in decibel? Is because in the last 2 days I've been consuming some food and water related drinks that have some chemicals in them that are harming my health. Now, these food and water contaminations are unavoidable in the country where I live, in the place from where I'm buying things. I've tried many times to get good quality products, but consistency is really bad in our country. So, getting the same brand also doesn't consistently give biologically or chemically free like pure products. Even there is invariably some contamination in the drinks and foods that I purchase here. And because my body is at a heightened stress level, every time I am consuming even minor degrees of toxins in these foods and drinks, minor to major level, depends. If I'm consuming major level, my voice and decibel and stress response to it is higher. And then even if I want to try and stay calm, if the stress response in my body is highly activated from the chemical damage going on inside me, I will invariably be speaking in a way where my tone will not seem that calm. And this is what can happen to anyone. If you are sick, if you are majorly sick, if your sickness is at a level where heightened stress responses are going on inside your body, and these stress responses can be calculated by some diagnostic tests, but those diagnostic tests also have to be done. And even after doing the diagnostics tests, if the doctor sees that someone's stress response, like a C-reactive protein is one of the stress response proteins that could be high in someone's body when something is going wrong with their health. Now, if the C-reactive protein is high and the doctor observes it, and maybe the doctor did observe it and said, oh, or the doctor observed just simply that the way the woman is talking, that she is highly stressed, doctor was right. But most doctors ascribe when someone is, especially when women speak in a higher tone with higher pitch or higher decibel or faster, because sometimes women speak fast also. If they're doing any of these things where, because what is the image of a woman in most men's eyes? Most men want women to be sedate, sedentary, calm, at a unitone like personality. But most women are not that. Women cannot be like that because women do not have certain hormonal hormones. There is a hormonal difference between a man and a woman. So a man and a woman can never be speaking at the same level. The same hormones which makes a woman sound chirpy and bright and cheerful and bubbly are the same hormones when the woman is sick will make them do the opposite as well. When they are sick, they will not be that chirpy, they will be grouchy, because it's the emotional hormone and the emotional response to things. That is what makes women a woman. A woman is both, there is this positive side to the woman where the woman will be chirpy and bright and colorful, and then there is the opposite side also when they are sicker or when they are having their downward cycle. That is when, during periods women get PMS and PMDD symptoms, because they will be also the opposite of that, right? Because this is how universe balances people. Whereas men usually are going through, women go through this every 28-day cycle typically, and men are going through a 24-hour cycle. That's why men's emotions are more even keel. They do not have, most men do not have these variability in their mood as much as women have it, right? So, and with men, when they do indeed have a variability in their mood, it can manifest in the form of anger, manifest in the form of abuse, when they are also highly stressed out beyond what their hormonal level changes can impact them to stay even keel. So this is the difference between a man and a woman. So if she went to a male doctor sometimes do not get trained about this, about women. Many men also don't have this training about women. That's why many men avoid also when their women are having their periods and having this high emotional response. So many men avoid their women during their periods. So many men avoid their women when they are having emotional hormonal responses during pregnancy or after pregnancy. So these same typical things that men do to women now, and not simply men, sometimes even women do that. They also avoid someone who's been highly emotionally responsive. Now considering this woman being pregnant, this woman having sepsis going on and showing symptoms of sepsis like the chills she described, and then considering that because she's a mom's instinct is also usually very high, because this is how society prepares, or genetics has prepared women. Their intuition has to be high to know when their child is in distress, when their baby, before birth and after birth. Both women have to have this heightened sense of intuitional connection with their children to know when something is going wrong. Considering all these facts, when she's going to the doctor and presenting her case, and the doctor is denying and laughing and saying, because this is how the comment said, that the doctor laughed that everything is fine, your lab reports look fine, and you are stressed. But this is where doctors have to learn now and change now, otherwise these kind of instances will escalate in medical practices. That with any woman, not simply a pregnant woman, it can happen to any woman or any man also who has more feminine energy. Because when you have feminine energy, meaning when you have a little higher amount of feminine energy, it means certain hormones that cause the feminine instinct and intuition and response system to kick inside us, that aspect is higher in us. So at that time, if your intuition is telling you are in danger, and your doctor is ignoring that danger, or your spouse is ignoring that danger, that is when you will get, naturally, it is a natural human response to be stressed even further, because that is how distress should work in any human being. If there is a fire happening inside your neighborhood, and if the fire engine that is coming to douse the fire doesn't ring the bell real hard to let the whole neighborhood know that the fire is there, and you are not trained to know that these alarm bells have to be ringing when the fire engine is going through your neighborhood, most people, if you don't know this, you will ignore the alarm bell, and you will assume nothing is going wrong when the house next to you is burning in fire, and your house is potentially the next house to burn in the same fire. So this kind of training is how the same thing, where the fire engine has to make some noise when it is going to save a house that is on fire, like that our body makes some noise when our body is on fire and is on heightened distress from some toxins or microbes, or whatever reason our body's health has gone wrong. And that is why this woman would have had naturally a highly stressed out voice, or the way in which she would have been communicating to the doctor would seem like stress. But most doctors assume when women are talking like that they are in their hormonal stages, and that's why they are stressed. They don't assume that this stress could also be attributed to other factors, like a physical health distress manifesting in their body or in their baby's body, because here the distress that the mother would be feeling would be not simply her distress, but the stress of being toxed out by sepsis, that was toxing out the body of both the mother and the baby, right? So she has to naturally sound more agitated, naturally sound more distressed, which many doctors ignore in a person who is at a critical juncture of health harm, who needs actually even more attention than what the doctor gave her. And this is where many doctors need to get new kind of training to distinguish between what they are assuming is a mental health illness or an emotional response to hormonal changes, than distinguishing that this kind of stress response could also be attributed to something going wrong in the patient's health. And which is what happened. Her sepsis was actually going on way before she saw this doctor. I can guarantee tell you, if the neutrally someone is given this report of this woman, any other doctor or a PharmD is given, a functional health doctor or a PharmD doctor is given, this report, a PharmD from US, because I don't know any other country's PharmD educational qualifications, but I know in US PharmD doctors are qualified to look into these kind of blood reports. And if that doctor looked into those blood reports, or even sometimes a pathologist also, in some countries, in India I have found pathologists have good educational knowledge about how to read a blood report the right way. So if it is a well-educated pathologist, well-educated PharmD doctor, well-educated, informed and insightful as well, these kind of, or a functional health medicine doctor, these kind of people will have more insights onto the red flags of a person's blood test, even when the red flags are minor red flags and not any deeper level red flags that the blood tests are showing. And also in PharmD education, especially from the university I did that education, they also teach that it's not simply the patient's diagnostic reports that you look at to diagnose whether they are well or not well. Apart from the diagnostic blood reports or blood pressure, blood and other tests, urine tests, whatever they did, the range of tests they might have done on her, apart from that, you have to also look at the patient's symptoms. You also have to look at sometimes the patient's family history. Sometimes you have to look at the patient's parental history. Sometimes, which I didn't learn when I was doing this PharmD degree, but from my own health incidences, I have learned this. Nowadays, people have also got to be aware about what kind of food the patient is consuming. People have also got to wake up to what is happening in the world in their own neighborhood. Because if there is a newspaper report that shows that fishes are dying in a particular area, it means the water in that area is polluted, which means that same water pollution will be impacting not simply the tiny fishes, but a tiny fetus, a tiny stray animal, and a big large human as well, all of whom are consuming the water from that same area. So these, putting two and two together of what environmental factors are also impacting a patient's health, that is something every doctor who really wants to practice medicine to help people has to understand is happening to certain patients' lives. And this woman, even though after this whole incident the baby died and they sued the hospital, I don't know what happened to the hospital, I don't know what happened to the doctor, but for this woman also it's very important that the sepsis that she had, if she's continuing to live in the same home where this baby died, her home health conditions, or if she's working also in the same environment and living also in the same place and doing the same kind of things she was doing before the baby died, then all those things also need to be examined for her to actually truly recover from this sepsis related health consequences as well, because the sepsis developed in her body likely from the food, the water, the drink, the home environment, the work environment, the travel environment, because there are many causes of root causes that can lead to a sepsis in a person's health. And the root causes sometimes can also be multiple combination factor of things, and each of them slowly has to be eliminated from her life if she really wants a balanced healthy life to continue onwards in her future. If she in the future also wants to become pregnant, if she doesn't realize that simply the doctor not realizing she is developing sepsis is definitely a root cause of the death of the child. But apart from the doctor not realizing that she had sepsis, she has to realize too what were the root causes that led to her sepsis in her body. And if she doesn't realize that, she will continue. If it was a contaminated water supply that led to her sepsis, she'll continue drinking that water. If there are, and it is not just about this one patient, if water supply is contaminated in a particular area, a whole group of patient population could be having this sepsis related health issue, undiagnosed, undetected, going on with their health. So that's why this is very critically important that especially sepsis is a very dangerous thing, and I do not like even studying this aspect of health because it's a very complex thing when sepsis happens in someone's body, how it happened or from where it stemmed. If you don't do the right analysis, diagnostic analysis or root cause analysis, you this particular patient or other patients in this particular area, if there's if the sepsis root cause was from water pollution, earth pollution, food pollution related factors, everyone's health in that area is actually in challenge, up for challenge. And this hospital also needs to wake up, because again, same way, if there are a couple of patients whose health seemed normal but wasn't normal, and got ignored like this because the doctors do not understand how to study critically the diagnostic reports, because any diagnostic reports where it looks like you have a normal range of numbers doesn't mean you are actually in the normal range. You could be in the teetering range or in the just falling short of falling sick range that the report is showing. That's why always with the report you have to combine it with patients symptoms also, patients other non physical number related symptoms also, because sometimes if sepsis is happening or liver damage, kidney damage, because these can all happen after sepsis or while the sepsis is progressing in the body. So at that time their skin colors could be changing under the eyes, the dark circles under their eyes could be present. There could be other symptoms. If the sepsis was occurring in their kidneys, then near the kidneys they could have had pain, and which the doctor could have again ignored and thought that maybe it is pain associated with the pregnancy. But here's where the doctor has to ask more critical questions and to clarify whether it is a pregnancy related pain or a different pain other than the pregnancy related pain. Because a woman who has been carrying a baby for months in her body, she would have understood by those few months, like if she has been carrying this baby for 5-6 months, she knows in 5-6 months how her body feels when the baby is causing her pain and when it is a pain that is arising from a different source than the baby. So these things, and women are very much self-aware, and they usually should have heightened emotional awareness and connectivity if the woman has not been abused much, or if she has, whatever the reason, if the woman is a healthy woman, her instincts will be high about knowing when something is going wrong with her health. But many a times doctors ignore the patient's instinct when the doctor's instinct is dulled or the doctor has become too busy seeing too many patients. That some doctors are also this way, they only are able to critically diagnose the absolute critical poor health patient, those gray zone patients. Some doctors are really bad at understanding those gray zone patients, or when the patient is sounding agitated, many doctors also if ignore that as a critical symptomatic criteria of a patient. I hope this makes sense. If anyone has any questions, please drop me a comment, and I am not at a doctor level person to discuss it in the way a doctor will discuss the same topic. But this information is needed by every patient, because patients need to fight for their rights. If they think something is wrong, instead of sitting at home, they should just simply consult a different doctor. Sometimes if you have the financial resources, if you have the time, do go and investigate that, than sitting at home and feeling assured that just because the doctor has given me a clean bill of health means that it is I'm well. Because if a doctor gives you a clean bill of health and you are feeling all right and better, that's fine, then it doesn't mean anything is wrong. But if the doctor gave you a clean bill of health but your symptoms are worsening or staying the same as before, and your intuition is telling something is wrong with you, you do need to investigate it further. If you don't want to go to the doctor out of embarrassment and thinking that the doctor will again ignore you, you have to seek a different doctor. It is must necessary, otherwise you will go through same kind of problems like this women went to went through, where she waited 2 weeks, and even though she was hoping everything will go well, it couldn't go well, because hope is only dependent on the extent to which you have helped yourself. Hope works. Hope gives you some positive boost and energy, and hope and prayer gives you that. But in hope and prayer also, you have to realize the realistic aspect of earthly living. And if there were things that were making her health worse, her hope is not going to help her stay afloat when the things that were making her health worse was continuing in her life. So if you are observing that something is, even for pregnant women, I would tell women, or any women, if you're eating something, drinking something, keep a food diary to understand, food diary, clothing diary, daily activity diary, to understand what was going on in your daily life that could have been worsening your symptoms. From there you figure out also if environmentally what factors were impacting your health. So I hope this makes sense. Again, if you have any questions, please drop me a comment. Thank you.